Congratulations on the new role. You've just been hired as the sole night shift air traffic controller for the Whispering Pines Airfield. From the top of the tower, the environment looks routine. The skies are mostly clear, the weather is stable, and the standard issue radar equipment tracks the local airspace just like any other municipal airport. However, that equipment is deceptive. Standard tracking logic fails at Whispering Pines because not every blip sweeping across the screen represents an aircraft. You are the only person at the center of a massive, isolated spatial perimeter. There is no backup team on the ground, no supervisor on the floor below, and no external authorities to call when the airspace begins to fill. Survival depends entirely on the specific operations manual left at the desk. These protocols are the primary directive, even when they contradict every standard aviation procedure you've ever learned. The Whispering Pines manual operates on a different frequency than any FAA handbook. To survive the shift, you must follow these rules to the letter, regardless of how they conflict with the reality outside your window. The first perimeter breach arrives at exactly 2:14 a.m. The radio will crackle open, and a voice identifying itself as Flight 828 will request clearance to land. There is no physical aircraft in the sky. Flight 828 crashed 30 years ago, yet the request will come through with perfect clarity. Rule 1 requires you to explicitly deny the landing clearance. This denial forces the anomaly to remain at the extreme outer edge of the perimeter, keeping the threat at a distance. The threats move into the immediate airspace quickly. Rule 2 activates when the radar detects a massive cluster of objects advancing toward the tower. A standard commercial airliner moves along a slow, predictable vector. But this massive inbound cluster sweeps across the display at Mach 2, directly toward the tower. The defense requires you to manually turn off the screen, plunging yourself into complete technological blindness. While the timer counts down, you must adhere to a secondary prohibition. Never look out the physical glass of the tower window. Without a landing vector or a visual anchor to ground them, these anomalies remain untethered. Denying them an observation point traps them outside the immediate physical airspace. In the third phase, the intrusion moves into the tower's internal communications. A pilot's voice will broadcast over the radio, using a tone and cadence that sounds exactly like your own. The entity uses vocal interaction like sonar, attempting to calculate your spatial coordinates based on your response. Absolute silence is the only defense. By withholding a response, you starve the entity of locational data, and the targeting sequence dissolves. Eventually, the spatial perimeter undergoes total collapse. Rule 4 addresses an anomaly that has bypassed the airspace to manifest directly on the airfield grounds. You will see the indicators on the asphalt. The standard runway lights will flicker violently before changing to a jarring, glowing crimson red. At this point, you must abandon the control station and hide beneath the dusk. These layers of protection, silence, blindness, and concealment systematically remove your presence from the airfield. By the time the perimeter collapses, the night shift controller has effectively ceased to exist to anything outside the tower. The crimson lights signal that the terminal is receiving a direct physical visitor. This visitor does not carry a passport. All human boundaries, laws of entry, and negotiation tactics are void. If the physical entity locates you under the desk, the consequence is permanent. You will be forced to leave the facility with them. The radar and the radio at Whispering Pines serve a singular purpose that has nothing to do with standard air traffic control. The night shift controller exists to remain entirely unperceived while impossible forces pass through the dark. Enjoy your shift,